Welcome to the Wisconsin State High School Curling Championships taking place at the Wausau Curling Club, where it has taken place over a number of years since this phenomenal place was built some years ago. We have not been here for a couple of years because of COVID protocol, but we are back, and COVID protocol is very evident here. Um, Fans in the stands have to wear a mask. Skaters on the ice have to wear a mask, but not necessarily the key, recommendation. And no one is allowed other than players and coaches in the locker room or the clubhouse. So our crowd is down a little bit, and we're set for our first broadcast of our boys competition. We had a girls game earlier. In this first day of competition, it's a Friday-Saturday tournament. There are pairings, 16 girls teams paired, 16 boys teams paired, and it's a drawing pairing, which sometimes can make things interesting for scheduling. For example, in the same draw pairing for the boys, Wausau West, Wausau East, DC Everest, and Appleton East are all in the same bracket or pairing, and we are going to pick up action now of the DC Everest Wausau West competition. And we'll go right now with a look at the rosters. For Wausau West, their first is Carson Kirsch. Jacob Hammond is the second. Chris Kirsch is the third or vice skip, and the skip is Wes Wendling. Wes Wendling, whose dad happens to be the coach at Wausau West and basically does a ton of work to set up this tournament at the Wausau Curling Club every year. We are in end number 2 at the moment. Wausau West is in red. No, Wausau West is in yellow, I beg your pardon. DC Everest is in red. And make that change on here. I'm George Hirsch along with Chris Berge, and he's doing all the technical things for us. And we're ready to be commentator for the competition that's taking place. This is on sheet 2. There are 8 sheets, all right now seeing action in this boys' second games. This morning, Wausau West was a winner. DC Everest in the same draw, a loser. So this is a must-win for DC Everest if they're going to go into the semifinals tomorrow afternoon. And right now, when you look at it, it's going to be an uphill battle because Everest in red has 1 stone in the 12-foot area. Wausau West has 5. And already Wausau West has a 3-0 lead after the first end. So it's really not looking that great for DC Everest to begin with here, but we'll see. There you can see the scoreboard in the background on the 3 for yellow, Wausau West. We'll pick up the skip and the rest of it as we go along. Right now, West has, I would say, 3 points out there in the 8-foot line, and that's the end of it. Okay, so that's 3 more, I believe, at the end of number 2. So it would be 6-zip after 2. West team, Kirsch, Wendling, uh, three of those four, they have been on this team for a while. They are very much experienced. And of course, not only this experience with the high school level, but nationals and other competition for a lot of these curlers, especially from certain schools or programs. Now we're going to start the next end, and because Everest has the hammer, Wausau West is going to open up with the first shot with Carson Kirsch, the lead. And you can see his release. The skipper down on the other end, Wes Wendling. And when you have a lead like they do, one of the things that you work on is guards. In other words, something on top or right on the top of the circle, or, you know, just so it gets across the hog line and starts plugging up the middle, because the way you're going to score a lot of points is to take advantage of the 8-foot part of the 12-foot circle. Okay. Now for Everest, Xavier Seeger is the lead. The skip is Alexander Mihalis. And that was a takeout. Takeout and roll out. So for Wausau West, anytime that happens, that's fine. Even though they don't have the hammer, they have control of this one. Now, Wausau West sending up another guard, pretty much the same place. Well, it's got a little, they swept it all the way in near the button in the 4-foot, which it didn't look like it was going to reach when I first saw it coming down the ice, but it did. Skaters, of course, they have to practice and practice and practice, so that a lot of things become automatic. One of those is muscle memory, you know, for as it relates to weight and curl, especially. Everest comes down and beyond the circle with their first response. That response from Xavier Seegers. Up next for West is Jacob Hammond. But first, Carson Kirsch. Will take his second shot. No, this is Hammond. We're already to seconds here. Wendling. Pretty easy to set up strategy in a situation like this when you have a 6-0 lead. And you're just trying to protect it. Here they set up another guard outside the circle for their own rock in the 4-foot. So for Everest, the challenge now belongs to their second, Jackson Footet. Jackson Footet, he's a southpaw, so he comes off the hash like the starting gate and track kind of thing, or the anchor for the push-off for the delivery. Oh, he's right-handed. Okay. It looked like he came out favoring the other, but he's right-handed. Comes off the left hash. Jackson footed. Following the sweepers who now are going to work. And they get it across the hog line. A little bit of bump on the west rock. And all they basically do is open up a port, take away the west guard out on top. So, second one for West. Jacob Hammond. And they're working hard to get it across the hog line here. And they will. Another guard. Just keeping things away from the middle of the circle. Unless it's theirs, of course. For Everest, Jackson footed. He's got a UMD sweatshirt on, University of Minnesota Duluth. May be his destination upon graduation. Some teams have uniforms and some don't. And they dress sometimes, some of them dress very interestingly, but I haven't seen that today as much as in other years. Sweepers will get it and maybe push. Yeah, okay, it worked. They did a raise on the west rock and end up in the 4-foot. So that was a nice shot. They didn't get the yellow off completely, but they accomplished a good part of it where they ended up. So now we go to Kirsch. And he's going to try to take out the Everest rock. And does. But his roll carries him off the circle. So all we have left is a rock in the 12-foot in the back for West. This is Daniel Garrett's, the third for the Evergreens. He seems to have enough weight to get it in there. Looks like it's going to go a little long. May go all the way through. And it does. Again, the weight issue comes in mind, especially gathering the information on the ice and how it relates to your push, your weight, curl, line, everything. Sweeping hard. This is Wausau West, Kirsch. Well, he's in the 8-foot in a good spot. Now you can see by watching the skip with the broom for direction. He wants the takeout on that yellow rock in the front of the tee line, which goes across the circle. And it's Garrett's job here to do that. But he misses, and it goes all the way through. Everest having trouble with the weight so far. So now West with 2 points, the only 2 in the circle. They're going to put one over on the other side if they can, away from those 2. So Everest doesn't have a chance to take out more than 1 at a time, which would put Everest in a real bind here early. First shot for the Everest skip, Alexander Mihalux. He's going to try and take out 1 for sure. But he's going for, well, this is Everest. Without 1 in there, and West puts another. It's bite enough to count in the circle, so they have 3 now in the circle. And we go back to Everest. They have the hammer, so now it goes to Alexander Mihalus with his first of 2 in this end. And the third for Everest, Daniel Garretts, slides down the ice to be the skip. Well, he's got weight on it this time. Does get rid of 1, but the West rock is still a point because it's closer to the button. So right now, West is lying 2 points with 2 rocks to go. 1 for West, 1 for Everest. Now both of these teams, along with Wausau East, practice here at the curling club. So they are very familiar with each other, not just from curling as a sport, but from the social aspect of it. Now they may practice at different times, but they do, do a lot of other things. Socially, they are connected. One of them is a common love for curling. Well, that's a nice guard for West. So let's see what the skip does for Everest. Alexander Mihalus. Right now, West has 2 points. What he can do is he can do a draw with the 1 in the button, or not a draw, but a push, a raise to get it out of there, hit it, and stay put. And then they would have 1 point in this end. Easier said than done. Let's see what they decide here. Conversation with one of the sweepers, teammate. You certainly need to have this one be heavy enough. Well, 2 points for West. Ups the total. And they are in control. Command. After 3 ends. We have 8 rocks per team per end. We've got 4 curlers, 2 rocks each. So somewhere down the line, you have to start looking at, if it's a mismatch like this one is so far, you have to look at just hanging in there and getting a few back. Now, Everest that time had the hammer, but West was still able to steal 2 points. So again, West the hammer, Everest the hammer, West the big score, 8-0. So they have the lead with the first rock. I'm going to go back to Kirsch. And not surprisingly, he's going to put a guard out on top. Well, the same spot as the last couple. Well, he's in there in the circle the way it looks from this angle. We get the one from up above, we'll be able to tell you for sure. But looks like it's in there. At least a bite. So now for Everest, Xavier Seeger with his first 4 and 4. They are going away from the guard in the middle, and I'm not sure. Something happened. They got into a curl. An outer turn on that curl, and it went nowhere where they wanted it to go. So West again with Kirsch. Release up to the hog line. The hog line, there are 2 of them. One where they release and one where they have to get it over for it to count. Or stay, I shouldn't say count, because they have to be in the circle to count, but stay in the competition. Here's the guard, raise, nice. So Carson Kirsch did 2 in a row, the guard, the raise, and the guard. Sitting in a great position. After 2 rocks. For Everest. Let's see what Xavier Stigers comes up with. This first one he'd like to have back, no doubt. It took off on him for some reason. This one may go too hard, and it does. Yeah, the ice seems to be fairly fast in the circle on this end. Now, I don't know, I'll pay attention down on the other end to see if there's any kind of a comparison. They don't have to be identical, of course. I mean, the ice takes up a lot of surface. Jacob Hammond. Now we're back to Everest. Coming up next. That was a nice shot for Hammond. And the number 2 for East. I should say East. For Everest, Jackson Footet. We will see East later in the tournament. Probably take on West tomorrow morning. It's a possibility. That's one thing about a tournament. We have semifinals and final. You really can't plan all the games that you're going to do. We do 3 a day, or a total of 6 for Wausau Area Access Media. And we can pretty much pick the first day. But then you have to look at the brackets and the standings and, you know, try to fit as best you can. The good competition as it moves through. Well, East is called a timeout, or Everest, I got it. Okay, Everest is called a timeout. For good reason. They have to turn this thing around. I don't know how many ends, you know, some sports like a basketball, football, you know, high school, they have a guideline on scores. If they get lopsided, they go to running time. But curling is not regulated by the WIAA. It's not a WIAA certified sport. So curling is governed by the State Curling Association. Okay, timeout over. Each team gets 2 timeouts per end. The boys, in this case, on the ice can call 1. The coach or the rink can call the other. Now, Everest has used up 1. And they go to Jackson Footet. You can see the scoring in the background there. The bottom is yellow. Okay, yellow represents Wausau West. Where the numbers are represent 1, 2, 3 would be the ends. And you can see that after N3, right above it is the number 8. That's the score for West. If red were available, you would show it. There's nothing there because they haven't won anything. And this was just, let's keep the guard there and don't worry about it, kind of a shot. Now I go back to West. Yeah, Everest did not take advantage of that last one either. Wausau West, last shot, Jacob Hammond. And he's doing more of a guard. They may have wanted that one in the circle. but in that situation, it's fine. Jackson footed his second toss, throw, delivery. You want to use the verb part, he delivers the rock or the stone before the hog line and follows the sweepers, his teammates, down the ice. Not much he can do at that point, but maybe encourage. And he liked that one. He liked that one. He cleared the circle. Well, they've got a long way to go. They're halfway through this end. Nothing in the circle. West has to be okay with it. They're up 8-0. They very rarely in high school curling will have blanks. In other words, nobody scores in an end. At other levels, as you go up the chain, you see more of that because it becomes more of a strategy looking down the road in the contest. Maybe looking ahead to the last end, or maybe maintaining hammer. You have the hammer and you want to keep the hammer, so you settle for a blank as your last shot. That type of a situation. But high school, they have to concentrate more on just getting it in the circle, making some good shots as you go along. And in this case, it's Kirsch looking for a decision, I suppose, from Wendling his skip. You can tell by his posture there with his arm. Well, to make sure he had the right decision. He goes through a port a little bit, and look at this. Not bad at all, at any level, that shot. Because that was a narrow port that he went through. Now, he didn't get all the way through, but he did enough of a move to remove another rock. So now goes back to Wausau West. Chris Kirsch's last rock. And West is still sitting there with one. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Everest with that one in the middle. Everest still sitting with one. They sure could pick up a few here. It would help them a lot. Now they're going to try and set up another red stone. They might try to line it up on the tee line. Let's see what they plan on doing here. It's a counterclockwise curl, so it's an out turn. Looking pretty good, actually. Little hit. Well, okay. I mean, they separated the two red rocks there enough that it makes it difficult for West to get both of them in one. So that means West is going to have to make some good shots down the stretch to get the points away from Everest. as Everest has the 2 points. Last shot for Chris Kirsch for the Warriors curling team. Wausau West was the tournament winner 3 years ago with a Wes Wendling, a Chris Kirsch, a Ruben Matthias, and a Cole Krasnowski. So 2 of those from 3 years ago are on the current team, current roster for Wausau West. Prior to that, West won in 2010. I go back through the history. Wausau East won a few times over the years. Wausau Senior High won the first tournament, state tournament in 1959. Came back in 1967 and won. But as I look over the roster here, Wausau West won in 1979, 78. They had a couple in a row there. Members of that team, Dan Peterman, Steve Moret, Brad Hansen, Dave Ray, Tim Turnquist, Eric Jorgensen, Steve Utek. Members of those 2 teams, one in common. Back to the ice. First for Skip. Done, and now first for Mahalis. The skip for Everest. There's one left on the ice. And Wes Wendling getting set. Again, Wes, like athletes do, they go through the very same routine every time they push that rock past the hog line. Muscle memory. It's important in this sport, that's for sure. Because this is their last rock now, and they're going to give up 1 and maybe 2. Now, here's a chance for DC Everest. They have the last rock. They have the hammer. They've got 1 in there. They should be able to get another in the 12-foot rock zone. And it doesn't matter where it goes. Just get it in the 12-foot circle. Which would give them a couple and get them on board in the 4th end. Alexander Mahalis. All he's got to do is put in the circle. And it looks like he should be able to do it. Although the ice is fast. Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, they got 1. Not what they wanted, not what they needed, but they got 1. So, after 4 ends, we're at the midway mark of this particular game. And Wausau West is leading DC Everest 8-1. And believe it or not, with that score, Wausau West now has the hammer. West with the hammer. We're all set to go. N5. First up, Xavier Seegers. You know, one thing we're at a disadvantage here right now is we are using the pre-tournament printout for rosters, and I'm going to have to pay a little more attention to who that the lead is for Everest, because I think it's somebody that's different than has been going out there. I think this is Noah Izat instead. I'm not sure, but I think so. I'd love to get it right, but you know, we did check with some coaches on rosters to make sure they were the same as the initial printout. Now for West, Carson Kirsch. Crowd below us just murmuring a little bit. We've got all 8 rinks busy right now with competition. And that was a relatively easy takeout on target by Chris Kirsch. Or Carson Kirsch. Chris and Carson. Second shot. I think this is Noah Izat. It's either Noah or Xavier. One or the other. Because the alternate is on this roster for the Everest boys. Some schools don't put their alternate on. They have one, they don't put it on the roster. Sometimes until actual day of competition, and they don't have to. Well, that one just barely got across the hog line. In fact, they took it off because it didn't get to the hog line apparently, or it was off on the side. I wasn't able to see it because of the activity on the ice by the boys. Carson Kirsch, second shot. Nice and easy. In the 12-foot. Okay. So now if you look at the circle, West leading 8-1. They've got 2 in the circle, about as far apart as you could get. And what that does, of course, is it means East to take out 2 that far apart. No, probably not. Could they try? Sure. Sure. But unlikely. So let's see what the second does for Everest. Jackson Foote. He's going with the in turn on the spin rotation. Might be okay. It's fast. It's not where he wanted it. He wanted it closer to the forefoot or the button. So now West still has 2 points there. 2 closest to the button. And they have Jacob Hammond with his first throw. You can see in the background stands. There are bleachers back there, and in other years before COVID, they would be packed and standing on both sides. Now they have the strong protocol, and everybody wears a mask, and the crowd is down. It'll pick up a little bit tomorrow, maybe. Still 2 points on the ice for Wausau West. And for DC Everest, second shot for Jackson footed. Well, he may accomplish what he wants to do here. He might. He does. Nice shot for Jackson. Not only does he get rid of that one rock, but he now has the point on the ice. Closest to. So nice job. See how long that lasts here as Jacob Hammond takes his turn. You could see Wes Wendling holding up his arm to indicate, I'll let you know if I need you to sweep. And they did at the end, and they got their one back. Nice shot for Hammond. We go back. End 5, or fifth end, midway through. West with a hammer, up 8-1. Doesn't happen a lot, but it does. Everest Daniel Garrett's with delivery. Looks like he's going to miss and go through. Yep. It is a little bit of a, not an illusion, but a difference between what you see in speed from the camera on the end of the ice and the one from up above. You can't really pick up the true speed of the camera on the end of the rink. It's much more visible from up above how fast something is going. This is Kirsch. He's just setting up a guard there. He probably wanted to get it in the circle, but yeah. Yeah. You could tell by his reaction it wasn't everything he wanted to do, but now back to Garrett's. Two points in the circle. Too hard, too much weight, push, weight. So it's back to West, still wide open. East hasn't been able to put anything in the middle. They did have one nice takeout, but nothing to show for it yet. This is Kirsch. In German, that would be cherry. Sweeping there, they want to get it in play. And that's a good shot. That's a good one. Now, for Everest, the problem is West has 3 points there and one guard out in front, and all 3 rocks are separated by almost as much as you could. If you said, okay, I'm going to put them as far apart as possible and place them down, that's pretty close. It's more difficult when you have the 2 on the tee line there, cutting across to take out. It would be like a split in bowling, you know, as opposed to at different heights in the circle. Okay, this is going to be it's going to be a takeout of a guard. So now West has the 3 points and Everest has Wes Wendling as his teammate Chris Kirsch takes over the broom as the skipper. That's one thing about a lot of sports, and curling is no exception. There's a lot of terminology that ties in specifically with curling. And of course, curling goes back previous centuries. Now that we're in the 2000s, probably centuries, I should say, yeah, as a sport that started in Scotland. Here in North America, it kind of went through Canada when a lot of Scottish people from Scotland immigrated to Canada and then down to the States. Well, what West does is, okay, we're going to put that guard right back where we had it. Pretty close. So Wendling will have one more shot. This is the last one for Everest, Alexander Mihalis, because West has the hammer, even though they're up 8-1. One thing you want to do is not leave it short. Not going to help anybody if you leave it short. Well, he's going to take out one. So that was a guard again, right? Okay. 3 points in the circle. You've got the hammer. You're ahead 8-1. If you put it in the 12-foot, you're going to be ahead 12-1. Pretty good spot to be in if you're looking for a W. Wes Wendling. Last rock, end, 5th end. That should be another point there. Just don't hit it too hard and you'll be okay. Yeah. Just a little raise. 4 more for West. 12-1 Warriors over the Evergreens. Wow. Well, we go to end 6. And Everest has the hammer back. That's about the only positive news they would have right now. As we go to end 6, they're up 11 points if you look at it now, this is an 8-end competition. That means Everest would have to land just a tie. They'd have to get 11 points with 24 rocks. Percentages on that, and there's percentages for everything in sports today. That's kind of taken over the whole scenario. Not much. Not much. Here's Carson Kirsch, leader for West, having a good game. He's setting up the guard most of the time because West has that big lead, and that's what they need. So Everest can't get started in the middle by the button. And guess what? Sets up another guard out on top. Yeah, I think this is the alternate for Everest, Noah Izat. I'm going to use Noah's name. Like Xavier Seegers and Noah are splitting duties here. Xavier for the first 4 and Noah for the other 4 ends. Well, he hit the guard in the circle, so now he has a guard, but for what? In this case. Back to Carson, Kirsch. Second rock, delivery. He lets it go well before the hog line. The hog line there for the release. They don't have a referee out there. They don't have, excuse me, an electronic clock. So it's gentleman's game in every respect. They have to, I mean, the 8 players are in charge of themselves. And they agree on most of the scoring, unless it's so close you can't tell. They agree on other violations. Coaches are not on the ice. They're up in the stands with the parents or classmates or whatever. Usually they're sitting next to the door because they have a couple of timeouts every end if they want to use them. Talk about going through a port. That was a nice shot. That was a nice shot. And actually a point now on the board. For Everest. That's the best shot of their game so far. And this is Jacob Hammond. Second for West. See what he does with it. What this does for him is give him a challenge, personal challenge to see what he can do with it. Well, he's trying to curl it around that guard. I don't know if it's going to come back enough. It's going to be close. Well, I think Everest still has the point out of the 3, the red one, closer to the tee. This is the first time in this game that I remember having this kind of situation in the button. You know, where you have more than one rock in the button. Now for Everest. Jackson footed. Trying to go through the window or port. Splits. Instead of raising, he split. Couple of rocks. But it's kind of a guard, in effect, for the 1 point they have in the button. We'll see how long that stays there as Hammond is ready to counter. You've got Carson and Chris, Kirsch, Wes Wendling. I mean, you've got yourself a veteran unit, curling team or rink. The Wendling rink for Wausau West, they're experienced. That was interesting. It just bumped barely, bumped on a draw. And now, I don't know. Again, it's hard to tell which is closer to the tee or the middle of the button from up above. Now we're going to Footit's. Jackson Footit's last toss. They're working hard. I don't know what it's going to do, but well, what it did doesn't change the point situation right now. It's the first time in this game I've seen them line up along the line. That goes from the one end of the rink to the other, or ice. Interesting situation for West. This is one they could have a little fun with because they're up 12-1. I mean, there's no worry about winning this thing at this point. So it's just something, okay, let's try this. See what happens. Chris Kirsch. He's trying to move him. Should have enough weight to do something. Nope. Misjudged that one from that angle. Thought it was much closer to the center. But you look from up above, nope. Not even close. West here in this situation, I mean, to give up a point, fine. You know, and right now, that's the most Everest is going to get. Talk it over. Set it up.
Let me take yours. My arms are worthless. I'm kind of weak. I don't do a lot of exercise.
Daniel Garrett's, you know, he's almost at a point here, down 12-1, where you just let it go. Make it happen. Well, he did, and now they do have a point for sure. So he did do something with that rock. Wasn't a total takeout, but it was certainly moved a rock. For West, second one now for Chris Kirsch. Well, it moved something, but again, it says we're in a situation here where DC Everest down 12-1 in N6. I don't know what they can do. They keep trying. You know, they're trying. They're making a great effort. I think part of it is they're facing a very good veteran high school curling team at Wausau West. I think that's part of it. And the other part, they may have, I haven't seen the roster for the last couple of years. They may have an all new foursome rink. I don't know. And this is one of those high school sports where it does make a difference. If you, you know, practice is so important for muscle memory, for feeling when you deliver, for focus, for reading the ice. I mean, there's a lot of things involved in that. And so practice and experience does mean something. Sure does. Now we go to the skips. First, Wes Wendling. Skip for the Warriors. He was the skip for the Warriors back in 2019, 3 years ago when they were the state champions. So he's been there before. Looking for his second in 4 years. So they've had a good run as a unit. Okay. Now, well, we got three more on the ice for West. So they've got the hammer last shot coming up. Wow, that was a nice shot. Whew. Turn this thing around completely. Yeah, West has one more rock. Everest has two. This is Mahalis. Or no, Garrett's. I'm sorry. Garrett's. Monitor was right. Well, what did that do? That gave them another point. So now they have 5 at least, I think 5. 5 yellow. Wow. DC Everest will move on to better things in the future. Today was not their day. Not their day. They ran into a buzzsaw in Wausau West. Got down early and never recovered. Okay, last rock for Wes Wendling. The Wendling family, the dad's a coach for Wes, and he has a sister on the girls' team. Talk about a curling family, right? Trying to get another one? Let's see. Well, they got 5. And the hammer left for Alexander Mihalis. Just, they got them lined up. I mean, that makes it very, very difficult. When they're lined up like that on the line, top to bottom. Just make it interesting. Fruit basket upset or something. Wow. One thing about this, you don't want the Everest rink to get discouraged because, as I said before, they've got a veteran group of boys out there who've been through this. They even had a championship 3 years ago with the same skip. They'll get better. They'll be more competitive against other competition. And then they themselves, of course, it's up to them to improve as a group. Well, he's doing what he wanted to do, but it did not change the outcome. Oh, no, it did. They have 4 instead of 5. No, 5. 5. Yeah. 5. So that's it. This one's over. The final in the state curling championship. First game for both teams. Wausau West 17, DC Everest 1. So Everest now is 0-2 in the tourney. West moves up to 2-1 as they go into their third and final regular tournament game before the semifinals and the finals, and that'll happen tomorrow morning for the boys. For Chris Bergs, I'm George Hirsch. Hope you enjoyed our broadcast here of prep curling from the Wausau Curling Club. We didn't really expect or really care too much about a 17-1 score one way or the other, but it happened, and that's where we are. Until next time, take care.